Well, Miss Cabe, I know you came to Ackworth in 1954, and you were already married by that time, but you'd lived in a number of places before then. Seems like especially around the Atlanta area.
Yes, I have.
Could you talk about some of the places that you had been and things that you had done before you got here?
Well, I grew up at Bolton, Georgia.
Okay.
And, of course, I belonged to the Collins Memorial Methodist Church there, and was in the choir when I went to West Fulton High School. And the old river car came down to Bolton, and you could catch the river car to go to school at West Fulton. And it was just a nickel to ride. Mm-hmm. So it took 50 cents a week to go to school. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of interesting. Yeah. And I walked from my home on Ladone Lane. It was the first old Marietta Road, and it was changed to Ladone Lane. Mm-hmm. And that's where I lived, and walked to Bolton School, and then walked to all the way to Bolton to catch the river streetcar to go to high school. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of interesting. I lived in West End after we got married, and lived in West End. And
that's the first place you lived after you got married?
Yes, I think it was. West End.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was the place to be back then, wasn't it?
My husband had graduated from Georgia Tech, and I'd been working for Western Electric Company when we married.
Okay. And your first husband, that's a Lamar Davis.
Yes, J. Lamar Davis. And
was he an engineering student?
Yes, he was an industrial engineer. Mm-hmm. And he worked for an uncle in the farmer's market to begin with, and then he got a job with DuPont. And we moved to Martinsville, Virginia, when he had a job with DuPont. Mm-hmm. And then he realized he could go back to Georgia Tech on the GI Bill, and we came back to Atlanta, and he went back to Georgia Tech to get his master's degree.
Would he have been in the Korean War? Or?
He was in World War II.
World War II, okay.
World War II. And he was in the Naval Air Force. It was the Naval Air Corps. And he took some of his first lessons at the airfield in Atlanta while he was going to Georgia Tech. Right. And we lived there long enough for us to realize he wanted to go back to school. And then he finished his master's degree. And he was supposed to open a plant for Dixon Brothers in Peoria, Illinois. And we moved there, and then they found out that Tomato was with Dixon Brothers and already had a plant there, so we came back to East Point, and we lived there when my second child was born. Mm-hmm. And then we moved to Marietta, and he went with Lockheed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he went with Lockheed.
How long was he at Lockheed?
He was there, I forget how many years, something like 30-something years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, probably.
So he made a career at Lockheed?
Yes,
And what year would that have been that you moved to Marietta? And I know the Lockheed plant opened up the old Air Force plant he went in 51.
Yeah, he went in there as I forget. It must have been about 1953 or 4. It must have been about in 1952, because our youngest son was just a baby.
What did he do for Lockheed?
Well, he finally wound up as chief draftsman.
Okay.
Chief draftsman at Lockheed.
So let's see, you're Joel Jr. and Gary. Which one was born? Was it Gary that was born about the same time?
Yes, it was Gary. Gary Jarrett Davis.
And so you lived in Marietta for a while, and then what brought you to Ackworth?
Well, my husband started a business in Ackworth, and he came up here, was dealing with Mr. Aiken, and had a building up here, and he started with crickets, raising crickets, and for fish bait. And I thought, well, he's spending so much time in Ackworth, we might as well move to Ackworth. So we rented the big brown house on Main Street, McCall home. It was there right on Main Street. And he rented that, and we lived there about a year, I think it was, till we built our house on Worth Street.
Okay. Is that house still there, the one on...
No, they moved it. They moved it down, you know, where the stores and all were, where they've torn up now. We got all those houses down in there.
Okay.
The house was down on a street, down on the side street there.
Oh, okay.
They moved in that big house down on that side street.
Well, what did you think of Ackworth in 1954?
Well, I thought it was a real nice town already. I enjoyed it being here just as soon as I moved here. And of course, I joined the Ackworth United Methodist Church, and worked with a circle. Was in the circle. They called it the Ackworth Circle.
Yeah.
And then I worked with them as a program chairman, and then they elected me as president of was called the Women's Society of Christian Service then. They just call it now the Women's
Circle?
Women. Well, it's United Methodist Women.
Oh, okay.
United Methodist Women.
Sure.
And there was two parts back then. There was the Women's Society of Christian Service, and there was the separate circle. And I was always working with both of them. And
how big was the church back then?
well, it was on Main Street with all the beautiful stained glass windows. And of course, I would join the choir. Was there one Sunday, and Mr. Verlin Moore Jr. came to speak, and he told him, says, get her in the choir, because I'd been in the choir at Collins Memorial Church. So I joined the choir then, and when I was in the choir at Collins Memorial, I was in the senior group, and I was only 17 years old. But
how big a choir did you have at the Ackworth United Methodist?
At that time, we had about 10 or 12, I think, in the choir at that time.
Did you have an organ in the church?
No, we just had the piano.
Okay.
And I think her name was Lucille Bailey. I think that was her name. That was a pianist then. And Mr. Buck Pittner was in the choir, and he sang a lot of songs. He sang solos, and I sang some solos at that time.
Well, the Pittners are an old family around.
Yes, they were actually, Louise Pittner, I think, became the pianist there after Miss Bailey did.
Okay. And Isn't there an elementary school named for Buck Pittner now?
I think so. I'm not sure.
But they were in the church when you
Yes.
when you got there. And I think you mentioned Fanny B. and Charlotte McClure.
Yes.
Were they? Talk about them a little bit.
Well, Charlotte McClure was our Sunday school class teacher, and we walked from the church down to the parsonage for Sunday school.
Okay.
And her mother and daddy was still members of the church at that time.
Charlotte McClure's
Her mother and daddy
parents were still.
were members of the church.
Now, why would you be walking from the parsonage down to the church?
I guess they didn't have enough rooms for all the Sunday school classes.
Oh, so you met in the parsonage.
I
see.
We met in the parsonage and had Sunday school.
And then had to walk back for the church service.
Right.
Where was the parsonage?
It was toward the end of the street on the right, and I can't remember who had lived there or who's.
You're talking about on Main Street?
No, it was on that side street.
Beside the church.
Right beside the church that went back
And the
this.
church is where the bank is now?
No, the bank, where the church was is a park there now.
A park?
And it has the church bell there.
Oh, okay.
You know
Okay.
where that is now?
I think so.
Well, it's the street right beside it that goes off of Main Street is the one
That's
that we
where the
walked
parsonage-
down to the parsonage.
Okay.
Yeah, it was good times back then, and lots of the people that have passed on now were in my Sunday school class.
You apparently had a lot of jobs over the years. Were you still working by the time you got to Ackworth?
No, I had my husband wanted me just to stay home with the two boys, so he was at Lockheed and was providing for us, so he didn't want me to go to work again.
So he worked full-time at Lockheed, but he had this bait, the cricket.
Yes,
business.
he always had kind of a hobby.
Okay. And so the kids were growing up here and going to Ackworth Elementary, I guess.
Yes, they were.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, Joel was in Miss Charlotte's class in the first grade.
Okay.
Miss Charlotte McClure is his first teacher. And both of them were in school there, and I was PTA, worked with the PTA, and
What all did you do with the PTA?
well, when in the high school part, I was my husband and I were joint presidents of the PTA, joint presidents when they started the high school, and we were joint president.
And that's at
and
North
vice
Cobb
president.
High School?
North Cobb,
Okay. What all did the PTA do? Did you raise money, or what kind of activities?
Yes, they did. I can't remember all about what we did, but I know there's always projects going on, and I think my job was taking up the dues for membership. Yeah, I did that. I took up the membership dues.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, now Rick Keno said that you were his Cub Scout den mother.
Yes.
Talk about that. Well, how'd you get involved with Cub Scouts?
Well, that's way back when we were belonged to the Ackworth United Methodist Street on Main Street, and we met downstairs, and Dot Hadaway was den mother too, and we worked together. Dot Hadaway. We worked together, and as long as her son was in Cub Scout, Mike Hadaway, was the same age as Joel, my oldest son. But when they got old enough to leave, I was also den mother for my younger son, and that's when Ricky belonged to it.
Okay.
Bobby belonged to it when Joel and Mike Hadaway was in it, and they got older, and I took on the den mother for the younger brothers, Ricky and Gary.
Well, tell me.
Gary had gone through everything, though, with Joel. He wasn't quite interested as Ricky and some of the other boys that I was working with.
Oh, interested in continuing? Tell me about the Ackworth Garden Club.
Well, we met in different homes, and they did present a plaque or something to the Yard of the Month, and I won that one month because my cousin had a florist, Barney Martin. He had a greenhouse and raised flowers and all, and he did the yard for me. So they put a plaque on the front lawn showing that my yard was the garden club, the Yard of the Month. So that was fun and realize things come back to me, like that I didn't realize. And even when we moved to Martinsville, Virginia, that time I hadn't put that down. And we were in Martinsville, Virginia one time. And moved to Peoria, Illinois one time. And then we came back to East Point, and my oldest son was about 2 years old when we came back to East Point.
What was Beta Sigma Phi?
Well, it was a club that my friend Virginia Austin had formed it, and it was just a club that we met and had special books presented, and
like a book club?
Kind of book club, kind of. And I remember Singletary did one book review for us, and I had to have a bracelet that has the year on it that has a little heart, that Beta Sigma Phi heart. Every year that I belonged to it, I had a little bracelet with a heart on it. It was showing the year that I belonged.
Well, it sounds like a sorority.
Yes, kind of like a sorority.
Is it? Okay.
I don't know.
You started your own bridge club?
Yes, my husband taught me bridge on a honeymoon bridge when we first married, and I really enjoyed it. So somehow or other I started getting some friends together, and before I knew it, there's bridge clubs all over Ackworth. Because it spread out, everybody got interested in it.
Right.
Yeah, and I think I was about one of the first ones.
Who all was in your bridge club?
Well, I know Ann Williams and let me see who else. Ann Williams, and a lot of those people have moved away. A lot of those people lived away.
Well,
and my recollection isn't quite as strong as it used to be.
Well, it's hard to remember everything.
Yeah.
Talk about the DAR.
Polly Chandler was in it. Polly Chandler.
Polly Chandler.
We called her Ollie Mae.
Ollie.
I don't know which one she went by mostly, but her name, I think, is Polly.
Okay.
We called her Ollie Mae. I think
Okay.
that's her nickname.
When did you get involved with the DAR?
It's about 1992,
Okay.
and I've traced back 6 generations
Mm-hmm.
to the DAR. And about the same time, I joined the UDC also,
Okay.
United Daughters of the Confederacy.
Mm-hmm.
And I had my mother join at that time too,
Mm-hmm.
and she called it her club.
Okay.
And she lived with me her last 6 years.
Uh-huh.
She lived to be 100
Wow.
and had her good mind.
Mm-hmm. Good. Which chapter of the DAR did you belong to?
Andrew Hauser chapter.
Okay.
I still belong to it.
Oh, okay.
And I'm a life member of the DAR.
Uh-huh. Great. Who was your ancestor that you were able to trace back to the Revolution?
Well, there was John Mays.
Okay.
There was,
And you were amazed before you got married. Mm-hmm.
and there was Francis Welchel.
Okay.
There's George Washington Johnson was in the my grandfather in the UDC,
Okay.
and his ancestor was Roland Johnson.
Okay.
Went back to Roland Johnson in the Revolutionary
Okay.
Revolution, and I traced the William Tate, back to the Revolution.
Wow, you had a lot then.
Tate, and there was another one I can't think right now.
So you had at least 3 or 4
I have
ancestors in the Revolution.
6.
6 of them.
It went back to Junior, Francis Welchel Jr., and then I've got the senior also.
Mm-hmm.
He was a doctor in the Revolution and tended his own son on the battlefield.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That's not good.
yeah, that wasn't too good. He had 4 sons in the American Revolution.
Mm.
The senior did.
Mm-hmm.
And I traced back to Francis Welchel Jr. first, and then I found the senior too.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you can hear that or not, but it's a hearing aid. Ding, ding, ding.
No, I didn't hear that. So you've been involved with the DAR for about 25 years or so then?
Yeah, since 1992, I guess.
Okay. Well, I probably spoke to your chapter at one time.
Yeah,
or
I
another.
think you have. I think you have. And maybe the DAR and also the UDC.
It could have been.
Because you speak about the war between the states, don't you?
Well, I've done that before.
Yeah,
I've also talked about Georgia in the Revolution,
Oh, yeah.
the Loyalists and the Patriots.
Uh-huh.
So, okay. You listed a number of people that had influence on you, and we talked about the McClures and the Pittners. There were a few. You mentioned Dr. and Mary McCall. I guess you got here right before she got elected mayor.
Oh, yes. Uh-huh. And Dr. McCall tended my children, and so did Dr. Cabe.
Mm-hmm.
And if I couldn't get Dr. Cabe, I got Dr. McCall, I got Dr. Cabe.
Mm-hmm.
And they both, Dr. McCall came to my mother in the parking lot one time and gave her, he said, this is, no, that was Dr. Cabe. He said this was roadside service. Roadside service, he came out and gave my mother her
Yeah. Can you
flu
say
shot, I guess.
Can you say anything about Mary McCall?
Well, she was quite a busy person, and she took calls for Dr. McCall. She came to the house a number of times, I guess. And one time Gary had a reaction to something and was choking, and Dr. McCall came to the house when we lived on Summit Circle. He came to the house, and I had Gary in the bathroom trying to steam it up so he could breathe. And Dr. McCall took him back to the bedroom on the bed and raised the window where he could get some fresh air.
Mm-hmm. That's all he needed?
Well, I had to take him on to the emergency room. He said he wanted him to be checked out.
Mm-hmm.
So he named another doctor to see Gary.
The emergency room at Kennerstone?
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
It was emergency room at Kennerstone.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, I had kept adrenaline and oil in a hypodermic in a sterilized jar in case he had another episode like that, but it didn't ever do it.
Well, that's good.
It was just one of those things.
Mm-hmm. Well, talk a little bit about Ackworth. I saw one of your notes that you used to hear the trains going by.
Oh, yes, when we lived in the big McCollum home right on Main Street.
Mm-hmm.
Listen to the trains, and when they'd stop and change cars, switch cars, it was quite a loud noises, but I got used to it. And that was about a 9-room house we rented there, and it belonged to Mr. Rod Richardson, I think it's his name.
Okay.
Robertson. He wanted to sell it, but we built that other house on Worth Street and moved.
And the Worth Street's the one that you're still in?
No, we moved. We lived there about 2 years, and then we built a house on Summit Circle. We lived there about 3 years, and in 1992 we built the house where I live now, on Lakewood Drive.
Oh, okay. Great.
And we have a dock down on the lake. And built a dock down on the lake. And we had a boat. Well, we had a boat when we lived on Summit Circle and learned to ski, and taught the boys to ski, and they learned to swim good and learned to ski. And Joel belonged to the Ackworth Ski Club.
Oh, okay.
And learned to jump, off the ramp, go up the ramp and jump,
Oh,
Yeah, he went one time to the meet down at not Augusta. Anyway, one of the parks where they had it.
Did you spend a lot of time at the beach?
Mostly on our dock, I think, and swimming in the lake. We had a ladder on our end of our dock, and back then it was deep, but it was deep enough to have our boat that we bought had a deep V to it, and it was right deep at the end of our dock then, but it's kind of had erosion, and it's not very deep there anymore.
Do you lease the dock space, or how does that work out?
Yes, we had to go to the Corps of Engineers to get permission to put our dock there, and have paid every year, to have it, keep it there.
How many dock spaces are there? Are there a lot of them around the lake?
Well, there's one next to us, Mr. We've had ours there for, I know, since 62 almost, when we built our own dock, built our own dock, and it was there for several years, and we could hook our boat to the dock, but some vandals kept coming and destroying things on our boat. So, took one of those. We had a whistle, I think, on it, and some bells and all, on each side, and they come and ripped them out, and would take the battery on different things, so we had to move it. But since then, and we have our person down to the lake now, looking after the people that come in and go out. You know, it's lots better. But back then it was just all open. But we have a guard and all down there now. You know, down the street there. What's the name of that street? Going down to the beach, beach area. You know, and we'd go. Lots of time we'd get in our boat and go fishing, and put lanterns on each side. And when we go dock someplace, and put the lanterns on each side and fish night fishing. We come back and clean our fish and cook them the next morning.
Right. So you enjoyed doing that?
Oh yes, we enjoyed that. And I learned to ski a long way. One time, I skied from way up the lake down to Ackworth, Galt's Landing. Galt's Landing, I skied all the way. Wow. It was about 5 miles, I think.
Oh, that's a long way.
Yeah, I was pretty young and nimble and everything then. And skied all the, right where they have the dam, and the waves were pretty high, but I skied right across. My husband knew how to drive that boat real good, and right before I'd sink, he'd pull me out.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that was fun, and the boys enjoyed the lake, and we'd go up the lake and have a picnic, and Dot and George Hathaway went with me a lot of times. We had picnics with their Mike and their daughter.
Good. Well, how has Ackworth changed over the years?
Well, especially lately, it's changed a good bit. And
you happy about the changes, or did you like it better the old way?
Well, I really liked it the old way, but I know the changes has been good for Ackworth. And they've given us lots of benefits too with our taxes and all. You know, we get a lot of benefits now from the senior center, especially our Ackworth senior group. I've been enjoying that for the last 3 years.
Oh, we'll talk about that.
Well, I've been going to cardio and we had it on Monday for a while, and that's on Tuesday, cardio, and the exercise part is on Thursday. They call it cardio exercise.
And where do you do that?
That's at the Roberts School.
Oh, okay.
Down at the Roberts School. They're going to change that to the new building.
Are you looking forward to
In May, I think
center?
in May they're going to change that. I've enjoyed it and made lots of friends there.
But you're looking forward to that new community center?
Well, in a way, yeah.
Oh, you liked it at the Roberts School?
Yeah, I like the Roberts School. We have the senior luncheon on Wednesday, and different restaurants provide the lunch for the seniors, and that's nice.
Yeah. Where did you used to go shopping?
Well, Town Center, I used to go shopping a lot at Town Center.
What about before then?
Before I moved to Ackworth, I went to Davison's and Rich's.
Okay.
Yeah, Rich's, I think, where I bought my wedding gown, and Davison's when I lived at Bolton, and I went to West Fulton High School. I took a job at Davidson's working on Monday night and Saturdays.
So the downtown Davidson.
Downtown Davidson's.
Great. What about in Ackworth? Was there any place that you would go buy anything here?
Oh yes, I would go to they've closed. I liked Engels across the street, and they moved it. And that center right over there where they had another store. I forget the name of it.
Did you ever go to Eatons?
Oh yes, that's where I mainly did my shopping for clothing and all at Eatons.
Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Eatons department store. And Imogene and Ronald Eaton, they were owners of that store. And I bought a good many things from them. And they had a seamstress that worked there for them. They had a separate little room for the seamstress, and she would do alterations and all. And that was nice to have that. And Green's department store, Green's 5 and 10, used to have Green's 5 and 10 there. And I traded with them a lot because they had children's clothes there. And I bought lots of children's clothes for the boys, outing shirts and all, from Green's 5 and 10, 5 and 10 store.
If you wanted to go out to eat, where did you go?
I don't remember we ever went out to eat very much. And we didn't ever go out to eat very much. I guess we went to McDonald's. McDonald's before it was renovated. And I'd go there and buy lunch for my mother and bring it back to my mother.
Well, where'd you go? Where was the grocery stores that you went to?
It seemed like there was one that was at the end of 92, it runs into 41. There was a grocery store there, but I can't remember what the name of it was. There was a grocery store there, and that's when boys were little. And I went there and bought groceries.
Well, I understand you're writing your life story.
Yes, I'm trying to remember right now. I'm going to have to research some because I'm forgetting what the names of streets and everything.
I think you said if you lived anywhere else, it would be in Elberton, Georgia. Why is that?
I love that place. I don't know why I loved it. So the girls would take me all over, and we'd walk to downtown. We'd walk from my uncle's house to downtown, and went to the stores down there, and I bought me candy. Was the first time I ever had this. Looked like shaped like a popcorn. Shaped like a. Anyway, they had some different kinds of candy that they bought for me. And we went to the swimming pool down there. My cousin was 16 years old, and she had a boyfriend down there that they had kind of some conversation together. And before I knew it, he had pushed her in the pool with her clothes on. But that kind of ended our swimming down there that day. But anyway, they took me all over, and I had a bicycle that I had never ridden a bicycle. And Tootsie had a bicycle that she hadn't ridden in a long time, and I got it out of the garage and took it down to the filling station, had the tires pumped up, and and could ride it, there and there.
Uh-huh.
It was a beautiful neighborhood. My uncle had, he was a doctor and Albert Sidney Johnson, and he had been, had his half-brother was a doctor there. We called him Dr. Joe Johnson. He was a doctor that was there that lived on another street from Uncle Sid.
Mm-hmm.
But he was my Uncle Sid's mentor, and my Uncle Sid went to New York, I think, and specialized ears, eyes, and throat back then.
Mm-hmm.
And but he was a country doctor. My Aunt Elsa used to say, my cousin that became a doctor, his son, Sid Jr., became a doctor. He said he made more in a day than Uncle Sid did
Really?
in a lifetime, just about.
Wow.
Uncle Sid was a country doctor, and he went on in his out in the country roads to calls.
Right. Well, what has kept you in Ackworth all these years? Since 54, let's see, you've been here now for...
Well, I enjoy my home where I live now. I do lots of taking care of my yard myself.
Mm-hmm.
I have in the past. And all my friends here.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's kept me mostly.
Yeah.
Is my friends
Mm-hmm.
and just put roots down, I guess you call it.
Right.
And I married again, but my husband, second husband, he came to live here, and we bought a RV.
Uh-huh.
We had bought one in 96,
Mm-hmm.
96, and we drove it all over.
Mm-hmm.
He liked to drive, so we've went all over the United States except maybe 2 states in our RVs.
How about that?
Yeah, we went to Baja in Mexico and up to the Newfoundland and Canada, and went to Alaska on 92 when they had the 50th anniversary of the highway.
Mm-hmm.
So we were in Alaska at that time
Oh, okay.
and enjoyed traveling.
Great. Well, I'm out of questions. Is there anything you'd like to add for the interview?
Well, I've had a lot of sadness and all too, but I don't think we need to add that into it.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think we need to add that in.
Not unless you want to add anything.
Because my oldest son passed away with cancer in '88.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the hardest thing that I have to face.
I guess so.
But my son, younger son, he lives in Marietta now, and
Okay.
and I have a stepchildren. That was my second husband's children,
Mm-hmm.
and one daughter lives. Daughter, I guess you're half. My stepson's wife lives in Missouri now, and they come with their 2 girls, my step grandchildren,
Mm-hmm.
and I have a step grandson that lives in Florida, Crawfordville, Florida, and a step great granddaughter, and my own grandson lives in Maryland. My daughter-in-law that married my son that passed away, she had never remarried, and she lives in Maryland. And she has traveled all over. She was a librarian, and she joined the world team of people that send people different countries, different places. And she went to Mexico first and was living there for 3 years. And she came home one time and took me back to Guadalajara with her. And I went to the museums and all there. Enjoyed that.
What does Gary do?
Gary is working for the state. He's he's a physicist, geology and physics. He works for the state, and he helps them with different places that are being built. He can tell them what's in the ground and around. He's a geologist. Does work for the state.
Fantastic.
He says he guess he'd keep working as long as my grandson's in school. He's in medical school.
Oh.
Yeah, he graduated from Georgia Tech. My grandson, Gary Jarrett.
And where's he in medical
Carlton
school?
Jarrett. He's in medical school at Augusta,
Okay.
Georgia Medicals.
Okay.
And right now he's in his senior year. I mean, going into his senior year, I'd say. Yeah. He'll be going, he's been going to, with the doctors, to different places to practice, now.
Sure. Well, that's great.
I'm proud of him, and I'm proud of a great-grandson, too. Great-grandson, he's 5 years old now.
How about that?
Yeah, it was Joel Lamar, and then Joel Lamar Jr., and then Joel Whitlow Davis, and now it's Joel Thomas.
Joel stayed in the...
Joel, the grandfather, first one that I knew was Joel Grover. Joel Grover.
Joel's been a family name
Yeah,
for a while.
it's been a family name for a good many generations now, 1, 2.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Well, I appreciate you and listening to me, and hope I have said something that's be interesting for you.